Good evening, everyone. People are kind of joining, but we are going to get started because there's a lot to go through tonight. I'm Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group, and I am here tonight with Ellen Whalen, who is our Road to College resident counselor. But Ellen and I have been working together for at least like 5 years, right, Ellen? Um, and I'm gonna have Ellen share a little bit about her background, but before I do, I just want to give some housekeeping. These are technically Zoom meetings. They aren't Zoom webinars, and I only always share that because if you don't have a question, it's good to just keep yourself muted, so then we don't hear any background noises. But if you really want to unmute yourself and ask a question, we love hearing people's questions, in addition to, of course, putting questions in the chat. So before I hand this over to give that Ellen can give a little bit of her background, tonight we're going through a sample Common App, which is from a volunteer that we got. So Ellen actually went through their Common App just as if we would do it as part of services that we offer. So you can see Ellen's comments and feedback. And we'll also talk about in general some Common App, issues or mistakes to avoid. And before we do that, we always love to hear who is here tonight. Where are you watching from? Obviously, most everybody here tonight has a high school senior. And just give us an idea of, you're right. Ellen always likes to know what your student is interested in potentially majoring in. You can say they're undecided. That's fine too. You don't have to have a major, but if your student has a major, let us know. And kind of
Have
tell
they have they started the Common App or
that's
finished
what I was
it?
going to ask. Like, where are you in the process? Has your student started the Common App? And when we say, oh, I mean, there's many kind of parts to it. Has your student started essays? Have they started filling out the Common App? Do you feel like you have a final college list? Like, tell us where you are in the process. I gotta honestly be honest. It's a little bit of a strange year. We're getting people who are keep waiting before really kind of diving in and getting started. So I'm very curious to see where people are this year in the process. So, Ellen, I'm going to pass it to you. I'd love if you share with everybody your background, and then we'll get started with your slides and the sample Common App.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Whalen. I've been a college admissions consultant since 2017, and I've helped hundreds of families through this journey and edited thousands of essays. So I'm happy to be here tonight and highlight some of the tips and tricks I have learned and common mistakes I've seen through the years. And someone I saw asked, how long does it take to do the Common App? And probably like 2 hours, not including the personal statement, the 650 word essay. It doesn't have to, probably about the time it takes roughly to do a resume. So it's not that intimidating. I hope that's helpful. A lot of people say they haven't really started yet. So this talk is for you then. I'm going to start by sharing my screen and going to jump into the Common App. So what I want to say, this is a practice account that I filled out. And what I'd like to give a quick background on the Common App. So it was started 50 years ago with 15 colleges back when there was paper. And now today there are about 1,100 colleges that participate through the Common App. And they also include colleges in Canada and some in Europe. And not every college is on the Common App. All of the like this California state schools, the UCs and the California University of California state schools, California state universities, excuse me, they're not on there. MIT isn't on there. Georgetown's not on there, for example. I think Georgetown is going to come next year. So anyway, the majority of schools though are on the Common App, and your student can only put 20 colleges into the Common App. That is the maximum amount. So what I'm going to do is go into the college-specific area of the Common App first. That is one section where like the supplemental essays are. And then we're going to go into the common part of the Common App, the part that goes to every college. So they're the two different sections. The Common App can be changed with every single application that is sent off. Back in the day, you used to not be able to change it. Once you did one, it stayed the same. So if you find a mistake or for some reason you want to change something for strategically, or you decide to add something just because a new award has been won, that is fine to do with each application going forward. So I'm going to dive into, oh, and this is a whole new interface this year. So I don't know it like the back of my hand, but I just wanted to also make that point. And so I'm going to go into my colleges, and I have inputted some colleges, and I'm going to go into University of Vermont now. And in it, there are a bunch of questions. And if I go into writing to see if they have supplemental essays, let's see if we see anything here. They ask about just academic misconduct, um, something about being, felonies and honorable discharge. There is no writing. There's no writing here. They're yes and no questions, right? Some of this stuff, it's kind of absurd if you ask me. Now, if I go into general, now here, which term do you want to start? Would you like to consider your standardized tests? So test scores. So this is new because this used to be in the testing section of the common part of the Common App. They never had individual schools ask this question. Now you can say yes or no. So if the test scores are submitted in the main part of the Common App, and you say no here, University of Vermont will not see them. But when I was going through the individual colleges, not every individual college asks this question, even if they're test optional. So I do not understand why not. So like I said, this is a new thing this year. But they ask if you are going to be pursuing financial aid. And look, under general, look at this. We have essays. Why are there essay questions here, right? Why isn't it under writing? So your student has to go through every single college they're applying to and answer all the questions to find the supplemental essays and fill out, are they going to apply for the honors college or not? Because that might produce a hidden essay. So please do that.
Don't wait to do this like 2 days before it's due.
Do it tonight.
Right, because we inevitably we get a call or an email from somebody that all of a sudden realize, oh my God, there's another essay that I didn't know I had to write.
Yes. Okay. So really quickly here, the student has to choose one of the following prompts. So one of the most common supplemental essay question is, why this college? Why UVM? They don't even hide it. They don't say UVM's a lovely place to go in Burlington, Vermont, blah, blah, blah. Why do you want to come? It's just why UVM? Okay. So, and then they have a thing about Ben and Jerry's and community essay. And I'll just skip down because they abbreviate down to here. YUVM, Ben and Jerry's, identity essay, environment essay, soundtrack essay, and favorite sentence from the personal statement. So I like their reductiveness. That's unusual. And so then it gets filled out here, and it's 500 words. Again, this is just general. This is not under the writing section. And so that is what I wanted to point out. This is again under the My Colleges section. And then if I go back to overview of the colleges, up here in this corner, the application requirements, once the colleges are put in, this can be handy for families to just look at and see different deadlines and fees and teacher recs and stuff like that, how many are permitted and asked for. So that's just a little helpful button to push. And I'm going to jump out of here now, get back into the Common App. Okay, so I'm back with the colleges. So now I'm going to leave the college specific section, and I'm going to go to the home page, and I'm going to the My Common application. And that is where we're going to spend the rest of the evening, in the part of the Common App that goes to every single college, but can be changed between applications. Okay, so personal information. Now I'm going to hit preview. I have filled this information out and I'm going to hit preview and you can see everything here that I filled out. So I'm just going to be doing that because it's just easier to read it in this presentation. So regarding name, it should be the legal name and the name should be matching what the counselor is putting in. So that's the first thing. Um, it should be a professional email. Some people say do not use your high school email because let's say a student wants to transfer and they get kicked out of that email, then they don't like have access to their Common App again. There's some stuff about that. They'd have to set up a new account. And anyway, I don't know how much of a big deal it is or isn't, because I would hope you'd want to start a whole new application again anyway, but someone just made that point. So it gave me pause. Okay, so basic stuff here. You can see what I always often students do not put in a language that they're either taking at school or that they might speak at home naturally. So that can be a missed opportunity. So that's pretty much what I want to point out in this page section. Okay, now I'm going to jump down to family. There's not a lot here, not a lot here. Oops, it's jumping around. I'm going to go to preview. It's basically parents and their professions, and if there are any siblings. And usually you do want to, you don't have to, if something doesn't have an asterisk, a red asterisk next to it, you don't have to fill it out. But let's say, you have, you're well educated and you have high paying jobs. Well, that's not a bad thing for colleges to know, because that means you can probably pay a lot. And then if you happen to be a family that maybe you first gen and you don't have high paying jobs, well, the colleges it's going to help them to know that maybe you haven't had as many benefits or ability to do as many outstanding activities, because you might have to be taking care of your siblings. So it helps to give context. But you don't have to fill it out if there's a red asterisk. See the red asterisk here? Then you have to fill it out. All right, so I'm going to jump to education. We're getting into the more important aspects of the application. So education, if a student has not taken a year off for whatever reason, there's no change in progress. You only put colleges and universities in if a student is getting credit for another college. A common mistake I'll see is a student took a pre-college program that does not give credit, but they put it in because they went to the program. That type of program could be considered an activity, but don't put it in if they're not getting credit. Usually the most common is dual enrollment that students do. Usually that is put on the high school transcript, so they don't have to worry about getting the transcript. But if for some reason a student's taken a course that isn't through the high school's dual enrollment, they then need to get a transcript sent to colleges. So don't make the mistake of putting it in if you aren't getting credit, because then the colleges will be looking for a transcript. All right, so rank, they have all different ways of ranking. There could be no rank. About, I think, 60%, 50+% of high schools no longer rank. It could be deciles, it could be individual, it could be quartiles, so that you decide, if your school ranks, then you put in the way they rank. Usually colleges on weight everything and do their own GPA configuration. So it's not that important to worry about, but generally the rule of thumb is take the best weighted GPA that is on the student's transcript. Do not make your own calculations. And if it isn't weighted on the transcript, just take whatever the best GPA that is on the transcript and put it in here. They also ask what courses, senior year course, what the senior is going to be taking. So that is what's going on in this section, in case the transcript is sent before the first quarter, where there wouldn't then be any senior information like grades put in yet. So they definitely will see senior year classes if they aren't on the transcript. So honors here, the biggest mistakes I see are that students put in National Honor Society. Um, so it's National Honor Society. And I also find that a lot of students lead with that, and it's really not, it's very commonplace. So in here, the AP Scholar Award should be first because that is the most outstanding honor here. The honors are supposed to be academic, but I've had students put in athletic awards, but technically it says academic. I've had students put in honors classes here, so it's not for that. I have students say that the National Honor Society is a national award, it's a school award, it's a national organization. So minor things. I'm just pointing out mistakes I've seen. And another common mistake I see is future plans. Students are supposed to can select if they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, an architect, a pharmacist. Students can just choose a profession, or they can choose undecided. But I like to recommend that they scroll to the bottom and choose other, and then they can write in what they want to do, and it can become much more interesting. So instead of just saying engineer, they can say what kind of engineer and why. So in this case, instead of just saying computer scientist, the fictitious student wrote to study computer science and use that to perfect self-driving cars. So that's, much more intriguing and thought-provoking, or thoughtful of the student. So that is that section. So now we are jumping to testing. Oh, and I'm going to quickly say regarding, Debbie knows this one all too well, regarding National Honor Society, it can be an activity and it can be an honor. So that's always a question we get. Generally, if you have more than 10 activities, just leave it as an honor. But if you have more than 5 honors, you might not want National Honor Society on there. National Honor Society is an activity when a student, say, is tutoring, when they're doing something active within the club. But National Honor Society is pretty commonplace. So if your student doesn't have room for it, do not sweat it. All right, so testing. This is where a student is going to be putting in this case, the SATs. They put in this case, they've taken it twice because the student, you can see the test dates are different because the student wants to super score their scores because they did better on the English in the spring and better on the math in the summer. So that's why we're putting down 2. And this student has decided not to take it again. So if your student is planning on taking it again in the future, then you put down the planned, and then they would ask when. Now, next section are AP subject tests. And so, like in this case, if a student, because I don't understand why, before you used to toggle back and forth whether or not you wanted to share your test scores, as I said earlier at the beginning. So if a student doesn't want to share their test scores, for some colleges, if their test scores are below the 25th percentile and above for average test scores, then they're going to have to, from what I can glean, is physically take it out and then put it back in when they want to share it. Unless it's like the University of Vermont, which asks the question and then they can just say no, and then it won't be sent. So that's something to be mindful of. Now, AP subject tests, students do not have to report them. So if a student has a 1 or a 2, they don't have to report them. How do you know to report them? Google the name of the college and put in AP credits, and then it will say what they give credits for. A lot of state schools give it credits for 3s. Some more competitive schools might give credit for a 4 in a very challenging subject and only accept a 5 in a less challenging subject. So you have to look that up. Now, a common mistake I see is that students either enter these randomly or enter the test subjects chronologically. I always suggest putting all the 5s up at the top and then put the groupings of 4s and the groupings of 3s. And for some schools, really competitive schools, you might not share a 3. And if And if it's a competitive major and this test is in your major, you might not share 4. So it all depends. Colleges are not supposed to assume things they don't see. You could have been sick that day. A grandparent might have died. They don't know. So that's just the advice that is given. And then future dates would go here. And then I just threw in an IB subject test in case someone had that, especially ones where it's a 1 year class where they'd have an exam, because IBs are usually 2 years. So most students are just taking it senior year. So they wouldn't be reporting any test scores. Okay, so that is that section. I'm hoping I'm answering any questions ahead of time that people are thinking about. Debbie, I'm going to jump into activities now, but before then, are there any quick questions before I get to activities that you
Yeah, let
think I
me
should
just,
answer?
yeah, there was a quick question early on when you showed how the schools have different questions that, that get uncovered as you like go through each college, and you showed the UVM and short questions, and I don't think actually it specified how many word characters. So if it doesn't, like, what would be considered a short essay?
Well, but I mean, they were just yes or no questions.
Oh, were those? Okay, I thought I
But
saw,
yes, but then where the essay was, where they had to choose from what, 6 or 7 questions,
right.
that was 500 words, and that was
Okay,
under the
so
general section. Under writing, it was yes or no. Do you have a felony conviction? That's what it was. Now, I don't know if I hit yes. Maybe if I hit yes, it might say describe what it is, but the majority of people are going to be saying no there.
right.
So I
Okay.
don't know that I've ever hit yes.
A lot of questions about dual enrollment.
Yes, okay.
Um,
Some of
uh,
these questions are best asked, unless if it's really specific, your guidance counselor it's best asked, but I'll do my best answer. Okay, what is it?
Basically, a lot of them are just kind of where is that included? How to include the dual enrollment courses?
So it's going to be on the transcript. The dual enrollment's on the transcript, high school transcript. Generally, that's how it works. So it's just there, right? I don't think, I think they would enter it in that section, but then they don't have to send a transcript because it's on the high school transcript. Now, that is a great question to confirm with the guidance counselor. My children never did dual enrollment, so I do not know the thorough ins and outs of it, but that is my understanding. I think they enter it there, but because it's hopefully on their high school, and every student should get their high school transcript and see what's on it. Make sure the grades are correct.
Because
Make
sometimes
sure, yep.
test scores are included on the school transcript. This is like a school district or a high school decision, and families aren't necessarily aware of that.
Yeah, so if you don't want to share your test score, suddenly it's on the transcript, right? So these things are important to know. So get that, see if the dual enrollment's on there, and any specific questions, just ask your guidance counselor and or try Googling it. But that's what I just said is how I understand it to be.
So here's the last one, then you should go on. And you said this, but I think it's worth repeating. Somebody said, "Wait, we're not supposed to put all our AP scores on in the Common App," and I think it's worth explaining again
Yeah,
why maybe
yeah.
not.
You don't have to give your AP scores, even if the school is not test optional, even if they mandate that a student has to submit SATs or ACT scores, they do not have to submit their APs unless the school specifically says that. But off the top of my head, there's schools that are test flexible, where you can opt to share your APs instead of say an SAT. That's a test flexible approach. But beyond that, I don't know that you have to share your APs. Maybe at a few schools, but are you aware of any, Debbie, off the top of your head?
No,
I
I
mean,
think
it behooves you at the most competitive colleges to share as many amazing test scores as you can, because your competition is going to be doing that, and they're going to be sharing fives, right? So respect the competition. If your student has a bunch of threes, maybe they shouldn't be applying to Harvard, right? Um, so that is how the APs work. You don't have to share it. You can choose which APs you want to share.
so. Along the same line, let's say my student is applying to some really selective schools, and maybe some not. And at the not selective schools, they're giving credit for 3. So, my student wants that there for those schools, but they don't want it for the selective schools. In between submitting to individual schools, can somebody go in and make changes to the Common App?
Yes.
So think about that next one.
Every application is a separate application, so yes, it can be changed each time.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and somebody also even asked that the same way, if you want to go to this level of work, I would just be careful. Somebody wanted to change the order of their activities depending on the school that they submit to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a relatively minor one. Okay, all right, so great. I'm gonna head now into the activities. All right. Review. All right. So what I have done here is, well, let me just quickly show you. Sorry, let me go into here are the activities. So I'm going to scroll down. There are arrows up and down. So you can decide, you can throw all the activities in and then decide upon the order. So you can play with the order because order does matter. I suggest that the most important activities are at the top. I like it when, and this doesn't always work, but if as many activities that support a major to give evidence of that major bundled together at the top is what I'd like to see. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. But I'm going to give, and when we look at the student who shared her Common App, you'll see an example of how I'd like to see it. Why am I echoing?
Go ahead. Somebody, it was just.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So
No. Ooh, it is. Hold on. Gosh. Okay, go ahead. Fixed.
all right, good. Thank you. All right, so a student can choose all different activity types here in a drop-down list. If they choose.
Okay. Okay. One more time, and I'll have to let that person leave. I'll have to not let them. I'll have to make them leave. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, because it's driving me
Yeah, please
batty.
keep yourself unmuted. Or muted.
Okay, so if they choose a sport, they automatically get a drop-down list of sports from which to choose. And then they have 50 characters for the leadership description, 100 characters for the organization name, and 150 for the description. So this comes to a total of 300 characters. That's it for each description. And then they choose grade participation. Postgraduate is for 13th grade if a student is going off to a prep school for one more year of school, usually through sports and stuff. That a lot of kids put that in thinking I want to continue with it. There is a question, I intend to participate in a similar activity in college. That is when they say yes there. And they put in, when they do it and the average hours spent per week and weeks per year. So that is what is filled out, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. And this is what it looks like. It all kind of runs together so it can read easily. So I'm going to start off with the first basketball where this is typically what I see from a lot of students, and it's very ho-hum and we don't learn much, right? And then the second one I'm going to show is how to really flesh it out. So basketball teammate captain, JV 9th, 10th, varsity team 11th, 12th. First mistake here is lead with the best. Lead with captain to reverse chronological order like you would with a resume. Then the student will often say, played on high school basketball team. Well, that doesn't help us. Of course you played because you're playing basketball, right? And they'll put it in the past. Well, they're still doing it in 12th. That means they're playing. And then they might throw in some random acronym that no one knows. One HPE award. So these are common mistakes I see. I also don't like periods being used. I like semicolons because you might need a precious character at the end. And if you put a period after every single one, then you need to put a period, one extra period at the end. If they use semicolons, there's no extra period at the end. Do not capitalize after a semicolon unless it's a proper noun. That's a common thing I'm seeing students do now, which I used to not see. And don't use unknown acronyms. I made up highest point earner. and order matters. This might not be the student's most important activity. This might not be need to be first. Are they applying to be an athlete? Or are they applying to be a student? So what activities do they have to support their potential major that might be more important than this? But it's possible a sport might be the most important. I'm not saying it can't be. I'm just saying in the context of this made up student, I know that this was not their most important activity. Um, but now we're going to flesh it out. And so here I've got captain first, then I've got a known acronym, MVP, most valuable player, and then a little bit of the description, assist coach with roster/warm-up. This is the title. I have fully fleshed out this title. We learn more here in this title than we do in the whole one that was filled out above, right? Just in these 50 characters. And then varsity 11, 12, so leading with the best. Went to states in 11th. Team has been in #1 region for 10 years. So if you have extra room for filler and there's something relevant about the organization being, impressive, that might be something to throw in. But if you have something more individually about the student, that would be more important to put in than about the organization. Broke school record. So this is now where the 150 character description. 700 baskets in 11th, lead by example. See my semicolons? Mentor 9th grade members, teach neighborhood kids, arrive early, stay late, give it my all. So I just threw a bunch of things in here. Your student might use a few of these examples. They might not have all these to do, but it's just some ideas of how they might flesh out, fill in a sports activity to just show more about themselves. And here I had done 7 hours per week, 10 weeks per year. In this one, I put 14 hours per week because this student, is traveling with the games and stuff like that. And really, if this student is a good player, they're probably practicing year round. So that might be something to add that really, either practice year round in the description or put year round, but put in, team meets, for, 10 weeks. Something, there's ways to do it to show how really important it is if the student is doing it year round, even beyond just the regular season. And I'll get into that when I show like summer working year round, like more hours in summer versus winter. So you can get an idea of that. And so another thing I see a lot of students doing student government. So vice president. Oh, and I'm sorry, I also like to capitalize titles because they really pop. So captain up top is lowercase, and this is I abbreviated to save room because it's a common abbreviation, but capitalizing it makes it pop. So in this case, we have vice president, high school student government. Well, we already know student government politics up here, right? Sometimes if you don't have anything else to say, it's not bad to just have it there. But if you have something more to say, you don't need to be redundant. And you don't have to put the high school's name in and all that kind of stuff. So attended meetings, okay, again, should be in the present, still doing it. Help plan homecoming and prom, fundraise, and that's it. So impact, what impact has a student made? Keep it in the present and use action verbs, active verbs, and then all caps for title. So now elected VP, all caps, right? Focus on sustainability. Student government, so I put it there, kept it tighter though, and then 80 members are in it, 2 members per week. So it's a big group. Worked with principal to create real change in schools. So we haven't even gotten into the description yet, but we see a lot more going on. And so really great action verb, spearheaded installation of water fountains for reusable bottles, reducing plastic usage of 5,000 plus bottles, and raised 2,000 through online campaign. So we get lots of numbers and impact here. So completely different from the ho-hum, worked on prom. And here, 4 hours per week, so a little bit more going on. So that's how to get this to pop. And in this case, if this student wasn't even a VP, but they had spearheaded something on their own like this, it shows initiative and leadership, even if a student doesn't have a title. So a student doesn't have to have a title to show leadership. And that was kind of the point I wanted to make here. Now, another common thing, students play instruments. So I often see, oboe player, high school orchestra, play an orchestra, and that's it. And I'm kind of dumbstruck that that's what a student writes, but that's often what I get. So I ask a lot of questions, make suggestions. And so in this case, we have first chair oboe player in all caps popping 11, 12, three solos, 11. Springfield Youth Orchestra, SYO, because I'm going to bring this acronym back. So I want to let them know what it is. 50 members. So it's a large orchestra, school musicals, orchestra pit. So two different organizations the student is working with. Auditioned for Spot and SYO, 4 concerts per year, played in 4 musicals, love classical music, take private lessons, playing since age 11. This is how we get, it's supposed to be high school focused, but in this case, we get in how long the student has been doing this. So that's a way to slip that in. Here we had 2 hours per week, 40 weeks per year. This is 15 hours per week, 52 weeks a year, because the student is practicing year round and takes private lessons. It's not limited to the school year. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, family responsibilities, I'm not going to show any mistakes here. I'm just going to show how a student might be doing family responsibilities and how to flesh that out. So part-time babysitter and kitchen helper, that is the student's made up title name. Let's see. My parents both work, so I help where I can. It can be hard to juggle schoolwork and watch 2 younger siblings after school until 5:30, help with homework, drive to activities, shop for groceries, make dinner, and clean up 2 nights a week. So we can really see how the student might not, have a lot of time to, their grades might not be perfect. They might not have to be able to, they can't stay after school to be involved with a lot of clubs. So it gives some context of what's going on in this student's life. Work, a lot of students work, counter server and cashier, Pat's ice cream. I forgot to put hours per week. Hours per week work for summer. In the summer, 40, school year, 8. So that is a way to show the change in hours. Scoop over 200 cones per shift, just trying to give a little bit of interest. These admissions officers are board speed readers. So if you can just, make them smile a little bit, take orders, train new employees. So many students train new employees. They forget about it, close door, make a mean milkshake, again, a little humor, earn $6,000 plus in 2024 to help with family finances. So that's 40 weeks per year. So you can see they almost do it year round, but the average of 40 and 8, 40 hours in the summer, 8 the rest of the year comes to about 15 hours per week. So that's how the averages work. But by putting in here, then we see the student works a lot in the summer. And then the last one I'm going to show you is theater. Students can be doing a lot of different productions in different theaters. So how do you get that all in? Lead actor and assistant director is the title, involved in 3 regional theaters and school theaters. So that's 4 different theaters, started in 2015. Again, how long they've been doing it. Experience all sides of theater, 8 lead roles, 26 shows. Rose from stagehand to assistant stage manager to assistant director at professional theater. So that's a really good way to show a lot of impact when the student has done many things within an activity. So that is what I have to show on the activities. Debbie, I'm going to jump to writing. Any quick questions on activities? And again, we're going to get into a little bit more when I share the students' anonymous comment app.
Somebody's saying, can you write complete sentences instead of using semicolons?
You can, but it's not as efficient or effective. But if a student doesn't have much to say, have at it, right? So it just all depends. If you want to cram more in, that is the more efficient way to do it. It's like a word puzzle.
In the activity section, if you set up your own club, if a student sets up their own club and they're the leader, where do you put that information?
That'd be the title, and they'd be founder president.
Mm-hmm.
And then, how many grew club from 5 members to 10 in 2 years, impact, whatever it is, brought 5 speakers in, raised whatever for, the fund, whatever it is, set up 5 community outreach organizations.
So the bottom line is there's a lot of questions about students having activities that aren't sponsored by the school, aren't connected to the school, they have jobs. all of these can and should go into the activity sections. These activities are not just school-based.
Absolutely. And often outside of schools where students can shine more, they can get more responsibility and then make it a great letter of rec. Um, in that example with the theater, working in a professional theater, like that's impressive, right? So yes, absolutely. And what are students doing by themselves when they aren't watching Netflix and playing video games? Are they teaching themselves to play the guitar? Are they reading? Oh my gosh, are they reading books? That is an activity. Reader. Are they watching YouTube videos on whatever they're fascinated about? Are they working on building a computer? Are they gardening? What is it that they're doing with their time?
So one last question, Ellen, and then he should go on. What about summer programs? What about like if they went to a like specific, program just over the summer?
Yeah, that's an activity. Yes.
Okay, so it should be included, if the summer program had a particular focus and,
Yes. And sometimes it might not be relevant to the major, or they're going to be strategic about the major, so they might not want to share that. And some people say, well, if it's pay to play, then really should you even be sharing it anyway, because it's just privilege. I've had people, a lot of students put in the pay to play programs and have done fine, but I know a counselor who says you shouldn't be, who worked at did Ivy League admissions, and she doesn't believe you should put in the pay to play summer programs that are very expensive. So I don't know what you think on that, Debbie, but I've had lots of students put them in.
I think
And
it depends. I hate like on the specific program,
yeah,
so it's hard to
and
say that.
yeah, it's one thing if they say they want to be an engineer and they did or whatever, they want to be an English major and they did a medical program and they're
Right,
trying to pretend they don't want to be a doctor when they
right,
really
right.
want to be a doctor. Then definitely don't put that program in if you're trying to play that game. But then that whole authentic thing, and that's a whole nother conversation.
But if sometimes students are going to, and it could be a paid program, but they're getting credits for it.
Yeah.
I think, they should definitely include that because they're basically taking, sometimes college level classes during the summer.
And that's when that goes in, they have to get the transcript, and that's
Right,
back
right.
in the beginning with the
Yeah, yeah,
schools.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so I'm going to jump to the next thing, responsibilities and circumstances. This is new this year, and they're just trying to flesh out for students who might not have many activities, what they might be doing instead, taking care of younger family, working at a paid job, interpreting for the family. You can see these, and then they're commuting more than 60 minutes, stuff like this. So the Common App said that they're finding that probably students that select 7 of these or more probably are asking for a Common App fee waiver. So they're just trying to help students that don't have as much because they've got other things going on in their lives. So if the students don't have any of these, they just hit none of these. All right, now we're jumping to the writing section. And in here, this is where, let me get into the writing section. We get a personal essay and preview. So in this section, Debbie and I and Terry did a whole talk 3 times on essays. Debbie, do you want to put the link in there?
I will find it, yes.
Thank you. And so basically, if you want to know more about essays, watch that talk. But in a nutshell, the personal statement or main essay, it can go by either name, is 650 words, and it's about your passions and what makes a student unique. Common mistakes I see quickly, not we went to many more in the talk, is that 80% of the essay is on time before school, before high school. And so that is not what a student wants to talk about. They want to talk about what they're doing today. There might have been an incident when they were younger that is important to mention briefly, but it should be about reflections in high school and growth and how what they're doing from now through what they learned through the lessons earlier. And then a one-dimensional essay that might not be expansive enough. So like a theme of I had a student want to write about how she was climbing this kind of treacherous terrain, like in a state park, and she got really, really scared. It was very steep and it was very hard for her, and her father had gone ahead, and she went on and on about it. And I'm not saying it wasn't traumatic for her, it was, but it became a one-note essay where I said to where she finally gets the courage and goes on, and she was proud of herself, and that was awesome. But while she's stuck there, I had her reflect on other times she had struggles and got overcame them, came up with the courage to go beyond and push yourself. So instead of just doing that one view of this, difficult trail, she then brought up like 3 other times she had challenges in her life and was able to push through. So we end up learning so much more about her. And maybe she even then adds something about a time that she supported a friend to push through also, where she becomes a guide in that sense. So that's what I mean by kind of a one-note essay. Uh, but sometimes a story is enough in and of itself too. I don't mean to say it isn't, but schools do look for reflections in the essay to see that the student has grown and thought through the experience. So that is the personal statement. Now this is new this year, the challenges and circumstances. It's 250 words. Possible uses could be a drop in grades because of a natural disaster, for example. It could be something to do with a learning challenge too. So the question we always get is, when do you always share if a student has a learning challenge? If your student does not have a drop in grades, and or you don't think that if they have enough rigor, then you wouldn't bring up a learning challenge. Now, if a student maybe only has one AP and maybe they should have had 3 or 4, then they might bring up this learning challenge. That may or may not be debated if they have straight A's, but generally, like lots of young men, they often tend to have a late start and an upward curve, where young women often can be like straight 4.0 from the start. But sometimes a student will be doing well or like this and drop. And that there might be a reason to explain that drop. Or student isn't doing so well and then they spike up, and it could be because they finally got diagnosed with having ADHD, but they got the help they needed. So it all depends on the grade trends, whether or not a student would share a challenge regarding a learning challenge, to be redundant. And then there's the additional information section, and that's 300 words. It used to be 650. And possible mistakes, possibly leaving it blank if you do have something to share. Sometimes there might just be a couple things. There might be a student might not have 4 years of a language, and it could be because there was a class conflict. Well, that is good to know, because the more competitive colleges want 4 years of the 5 core subjects, which includes a foreign language. So you can look to see what each college requirements or recommend that a student has. And if student doesn't have it and there's a reason they don't, you would explain it here. You don't want to copy a resume into the space. If a college wants a resume, they will let you upload it under the college specific section. If you have an extra supplemental essay that you absolutely love and you just want to share here, don't. This is not the space for that. And this is also more bullet points. It's not storytelling aspects in this section. Possible uses for this space could be explaining the IB extended essay, and or like the IA, the internal assessments, or research paper for the AP research class could be explained here. What it was written about could clarify acronyms if need be, expand on 1 or 2 activities that many components, where I always use the example of Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scout Award or Girl Scouts Gold Award. That could be explained here if there were a lot of important aspects to it. Newspaper link could be shared here. If students done research, they might go into detail about their research here. Like I said, class conflict here. Explain, you could do the dropping grades here because of a health or learning challenge. That really should be up in the challenges and circumstances. In the past, this was more like if there were natural disasters or COVID. So that really should probably go
So,
up there.
Ellen, there is a question that's kind of related to what you're talking about.
Okay.
What about, I'll give you the example and tell me where you would put this information in the app. A student who hasn't been able to do a lot of activities at school because they go to OT or speech therapy due to a disability. Should that be shared anywhere? And if so, how would it be shared?
Yeah, well, what was just said is how I would address it. The question is, depends how competitive the schools are and all that and the grades, but if they really don't have a lot of activities, it's probably good to highlight that. And if the student's getting the help they need and their grades are great and all that, then it gives context for the activities. So it probably sounds, based on what was just shared, it probably should be mentioned. Right, Debbie?
Yeah, but what about in general? What's your opinion about students sharing if they have some sort of learning disability?
Again, I would only do it probably, I mean, there are always exceptions, only if a student has grade issues. I've known students that have had ADHD and you don't see it in their grades. Why bring it up, right? I mean, it's just unfortunate that, people are human and they're not supposed to be prejudiced and they're not supposed to hold things against students, but, you know, these things can happen. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, good advice. I mean, it's like a, common question we get.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you're always welcome to, but I just don't, I would hate for it to ever be held against a student. But if there's a reason because of grades, that's another matter. All right, so I always recommend at the very least, if you have nothing to say in this section, additional information, say, thank you for reading my application. That's a nice thing to do. And last note is you might have to fill out the Common Apps courses and grades, take your transcript and fill information out. That or there's the STAR as a self-reported transcript and academic record system. A lot of the big state schools have that. That's separate from the Common App. And basically, it makes the job easier for these schools to not have to deal with your transcript. You have to put the information into their format. So be aware of that because that can take a bit of time. And so if we look here for the Common App, if we scroll down, I'm sorry, if I go here to courses and grades, it's going to say of the schools that I have on here, courses and grades. Sorry, if I go in here, right, I was just here, it says one college requires. So I don't know why is it not showing me the college that requires it? I don't know if we see it. I don't know where it is. Usually it lists it. I don't know why it isn't listing it. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, that's just something to be mindful of. Okay, I'm going to jump to the Common App example I have, if that's okay, Debbie.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here and jump in here. Okay, so a student gave me, now this is moving on its own. I did not do that. It's like possessed. Okay. All right, there we go. A student kindly gave us her Common App for us to share anonymously and to give some feedback on. We do that every year. And when we did this talk, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a
Yep.
different Common App. So if you want to look at that talk on the YouTube channel, you can, and scroll to the end and see the Common App that was given there. So going to the language section that I talk about, she speaks Polish, which is great. And she's a dual citizen. So that makes sense that she's probably bilingual. But did she take another language in school? She probably didn't take Polish. So what language did she take? And we're going to see she doesn't mention it in 12th grade. So is that something she should be mentioning in the additional information section? I don't know. Does she speak it well enough to put here? I don't know. So those were just things that came to my mind when I looked at that. Here she happens to have gone to 3 different high schools. So she's going to address that down below. So we'll come across that. And so she's got the rank isn't relevant at her school, 3.9 unweighted out of 4.0. when I look at her classes, I see AP Calc BC. That I check off rigor mentally. So that a lot of schools use AP Calc as a cutoff. So the BC is a good challenge. I go down here, I see religion. Nothing wrong with that. However, I'm not seeing history. So a lot of schools might not take religion as history. So is this in lieu of history? Is this just senior year? She doesn't have history. So usually, again, the most competitive schools, which she has some highly competitive schools on her list, 4 years of the 5 core subjects, which English, math, history, science, and foreign language. So right now I'm seeing 2 potential, not history and not foreign language for senior year. These are the most recent year courses. I
And
don't
just to
have,
say, like, this is the perfect example of why it's good to sometimes just get another set of eyes on the Common App, because someone like Ellen goes through this, picks it up, and now at least you have the chance to address it before you submit it, because
yeah,
maybe the fact that they took honors, theology, we don't know why, it could be addressed, in one of the additional information sections, and then
yeah,
it would make more sense as
yeah,
opposed to leaving it just as a unknown to the admissions officer, and they don't know, why this is the way it is.
yeah. Even better, have come to us in the summer. We could maybe classes could have been switched, or juniors as they're looking to do senior year classes,
Right, right,
or
right.
younger. So anyway, like math track, what math track is your kid on? Are they going to land in calculus or not? If they're looking at competitive schools. All right. So I do see anatomy and nursing. So that's interesting, right? Because what does she want to, what are her future plans? And I see journalism as, sorry, this is jumping as elective. So let's jump down to national honors. So we have National Honor Society first. And I don't think that should be first, as I discussed. So when I look at this, I want the AP Scholar Award. That's more, I would put that first. And then probably the Biliteracy Award. I'd put that probably second. And then you could do the National Honor Societies probably next, and then Honor Roll, and then probably National Honor Society. That's probably the order I would do. Future plans, she wants to be a physician. So that not anatomy and nursing, it shows me evidence that she has some schooling around that. So that's good. But what type of physician does she want to be? Does she want to be maybe a pediatrician? Does she want to be an oncologist? And why? She can choose other and put it in there. So that might be helpful to know. Testing. 700 English, 650 math. She's taken the test 2 times, so she's super scoring here. And she's planning to take it again in September. Okay, so AP subject test, she's putting her 5s first, so that's great. And 3s now, she didn't put her, we go back up here, and she's taking AP senior year. AP Calc, AP English, AP Bio. AP Bio is great, going to be pre-med. Well, why doesn't she have future tests here? No future tests. So that she should be putting down. Now we're going to jump to activities. Her first activity is books. She's an organizer of annual book and textbook collections. And just going to move that down. And so Tito Peters Free Public Library in Philippines, Habitat for Humanity, Bridge of Books Foundation. Designed flyers for social media, speak with 40 donors in 20 schools, collect 1,500 books for donation, collect 400 textbooks for Tito Peters Library. So she did a very good job with her activities. She really fleshed them out well. I didn't find a lot of issues with them. I did make it pop a little bit more from what some of this stuff's subjective, but I put in all caps and put annual book and textbook collections organizer. And then I numbered them. 1, Habitat for Humanity, 2, Bridge Books Foundation, 3, Tito's. And then I put design flyers for social media, semicolon, lowercase s, not capitalized, spoke with 40 donors in 20 schools, collected 1,500 books for number 1 and 2, just to make it clear. and 400 textbooks for number 3, Tito's, just to make it clear. And then she didn't have to spend all the time at the Tito's library. Anyway, it was just a different way to do it. So that was my thought on that. But my bigger question is, okay, so she's doing it 2 hours per week, 15 weeks per year. That's 30 hours a year. This is her number one activity. She wants to be a doctor. It's her number one activity. I question the placement of this. This might be a huge passion of hers, right? Important, but what comes next? Patient liaison, medical reception assistant, and ABC Health System and ABC Medical System and XYZ Cancer Center. I made this all anonymous. She's doing this 2 hours per week, 52 weeks per year. She's doing this year round. I think this should probably be first. That is my opinion. And then she has Deepwater Lifeguard, that with CPR certified and stuff, that goes with wanting to be a doctor in a way, right? So I could see those bundled together. Then the next thing she has is she's a member of the executive board of ABC Hospital Partnership Club. So again, this is all related to medicine. So I would take these 3 medical things, bundle them as they are, put them 1, 2, 3, and then put the books forth. That's what I would probably do. So like I said, she didn't have a lot of issues. I just capitalized some of that. I didn't do every single one, but I made her titles pop more and lowercase the letters after the semicolons. And yeah, so next she has journalism, staff writer. That kind of goes with love of books, right? So if books was 4th, this would be next. And then she's a book reviewer and volunteer at the library. So all medical, then all kind of books in writing. Then so that's, I think, a nice bundling. We see she has this outside passion. And then comes tennis. So then the tennis is together. And then three things of tennis, and the last thing is club member of the Key Club, ABC Cancer Club. And this she just did in 9th and 10th, so it's not as relevant. It could be brought up with the medical, but I think it's, since she only did it for 2 years on the beginning of high school, I think it's fine here. So that's what I would do with this all in all. Great job describing stuff. But that would be my suggestion for order. And then writing, excuse me. So her writing, I made a bunch of notes on it, so I'll just quickly read my notes. So the essay is about her love for books, with lots of descriptions of her room and a variety of books, but it's a missed opportunity. She touches upon her Polish heritage quickly, mentioning one childhood book written in Polish, but nothing more about it. She goes into too much detail, taking some of the talking about, excuse me, some of the book's plots. We don't need to know the book's plots, right? I want to know more about her. I'm glad she loves to read, but there's so much more we can learn about her. She could use the books to talk about her desire to collect books/textbooks. Remember, she's doing that. So this is kind of like one of those one-note essays I talked about. It could be a jumping off point to talk about why does she love collecting these books and spreading reading, so to speak. And helping other people become educated. She could tell us why she likes to write, like being a staff reporter or writing the book reviews, and cards for cancer patients. This could give us a quick understanding of why she wants to become a doctor. There's nothing wrong with writing about her love for reading, but it needs to be more expansive and less flowery. So that's my assessment of her essay overall. And so education, she did her education progress details, where she had to do that change of secondary school change. You remember she had 3 high schools, so she just wrote about here why she had to change high schools, but she has nothing in the additional information section. So she could talk about potentially why she doesn't have history, why she doesn't have a foreign language senior year. We don't see her transcript. Maybe she's taken Spanish up until junior year. I don't know. But that could go here, and that is her application. So Debbie, we're only 6 minutes over the hour, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to stop the share and answer questions if people have them. Okay.
So there were a few questions earlier on. Oh, very pretty background, Ellen. Um,
Thank you.
about the difference between what's in the activity sections versus a resume.
Yes, so a resume is not constrained. It's 300 characters, and you have to do more of a word puzzle, and you can only do 10 activities, right? So that's the biggest difference. Not every school lets you upload a resume, but a resume can have a lot more information going on. But sometimes the resume doesn't add anything new, so you probably wouldn't want to waste the admissions times by sharing the resume if it's very similar to the activity section.
Well, and not some schools ask or give you the
Yeah.
opportunity to share a resume. Others don't mention it, so I'm not quite sure I would really include it.
Well, you can't include it
Right,
if
right,
they don't let you upload it. It's
right.
as simple as that.
But sometimes students try and like squeeze it in like a link,
Yeah, they
you
can.
know?
And sometimes they put it right in the additional information
Right,
section,
right,
and that's a no-no.
right. Do you want to mention quickly also about links to outside,
Yep, you can put a
portfolio?
link in, but usually they won't have time to open it or would be worried about a virus. They're instructed not necessarily to open it, but if it looks like a real link and they are intrigued, they could just Google the information too and find the link without having to worry. Sometimes they do look for evidence sometimes, especially if a student is claiming, really impressive award or they don't fully understand it. That's what I will do when I need to understand better something that's going on. So that they might just do it on their own using information in the link or just the organization name and stuff.
So there was also a few questions because you brought up super score and how many times you might have taken the test and how much to report it. And people were asking, like, if my student's going to super score, but they took it a fair number of times or whatever, 3 or 4, do we really have to say they took it that many times, or can we just say 2?
Yeah, unless the college asks for it, like Yale and excuse me, Georgetown, you don't have to share it. Tell them how many times. I Googled this after our last talk, Debbie, and one thing came up and said you had to when they asked how many times, you've taken it. But that isn't, I went and looked at it before this meeting. That's not what they asked. They asked, how many tests do you want to share? That is what it asks. How many do you want to share? Scores do you want to report? Or how many
That's
tests
a
do you
good,
want to share?
I mean, that's a good differentiator, and that's being
Yeah.
true to the question.
Yeah, you want to share, not how many tests did you take. So look at the wording of things. So that is my interpretation that you can decide how many you want to share.
So what about the SAT essay section?
Yes.
So
No one
somebody,
really seems to be doing that
I know,
anymore.
I guess, but somebody did it and they want to know,
Well, I think there's a question there and you can say, yes, you're sharing it. And then you put the information in.
but any advice about like what score that is worthwhile to
I
share?
don't even remember anymore because,
Or it's hardly, I know.
it's so antiquated. It's like if someone had a subject test.
Uh-huh.
So yes, I can't even give advice on it. I
Oh,
think
here's
I
a good
think on the
question.
ACT it was a 12, if I'm not mistaken. That I
Mm,
think that was the top score in the ACT, but just Google it. Colleges aren't even really, if you're not sure, colleges aren't expecting it, the
yeah.
writing anymore, especially in the SAT.
So here's a good question. Where do you list future APs that they're going to take but they haven't
Yeah,
taken
that
yet?
was that was just with the APs. So future tests you've taken and future ones you want to report. And that's where that young woman did not then select, I have 3 future tests I want to report, and then you would fill it in. So it's in that AP in the testing section. Yeah.
So somebody's asking if, and I'm assuming if the school is asking for the resume, do we think it will even be reviewed?
Yeah, I've heard, some admissions officers say that they don't really want to look at another resume. Or look at a resume because they just have too much to do. But then why is the school saying a student can upload it? Like then the school, if the admissions officers don't want to look at it, then the school should say, don't give us it. So I don't understand why they would say don't submit it if you have the opportunity, then the school shouldn't be asking. So I think submit it if you have it, if it's worthwhile submitting. I mean, if it's redundant, don't. But if it's worthwhile submitting, and then let the admissions officer choose not to look at it. Like, don't ask for it if you don't want to look at it.
So, what about somebody saying, where should I add a video of my student performing?
Well, that's if a student is applying for like the an arts major, then that's a whole portfolio, and the school is going to tell you what they want to see. They have specific not specifics, specifications. Like it could be a 5-minute video, two of them, one on a comical scene and the other one on a serious one, like Shakespeare. They have very specific requirements, say if it's drama. And so each school will spell that out, and then that's usually uploaded through Slide Room, which is a platform that lets you upload things like that. So go and look at the school to see what they have for the portfolio requirements. But if the student just likes to act, generally the schools do not care to see it unless it's going to be their major, because it's usually sent off to that department. Say a student plays an instrument, if they don't want to be a music major, then there's no reason to send that in, because it's not going to be looked at, or you're wasting their time if you're not going to be doing it as a major. But I think I was looking at Connecticut College, and I think it had something like, oh, do you have something that you want to share? And they gave that option under their school specific section, that they happen to like the stuff. So in that it could be a random something that a student has a passion and they happen to have a video of. So it really depends, but usually the major specific stuff with a portfolio has very specific requirements.
Um, Somebody is asking, and there are students that do these types of projects these days, whether you want to call them
Yeah,
passion projects
yeah,
or research projects. And so where would they share that information?
yeah. So that could be an activity. It might be their top activity. And if they have more information that needs to be added, the additional information section.
Okay. And how about we'll kind of end with this, because somebody asked this earlier on when you were talking about the personal essay. Like, what is the value, or what advice do you give to whether or not somebody should write about something and kind of like one topic or activity and go deep on it, or kind of like do something broad in the essay? So the example that the person gave was that the student is, really good at swimming, does a ton of swimming, like their life revolves around swimming. Why is that bad to talk about like swimming in depth, as opposed to trying to like share all the things about the student, in an essay?
Well, so with the swimming in depth, is a student, say the swim captain, right? So as a swim captain, has the student had challenges with leadership? Have they had to rally the team, right? Can there be other ways we can learn about the student through the lens of swimming, but not just all about their freestyle stroke, right? Um, do they maybe teach swimming? Are they also a lifeguard? Have they ever had to rescue someone? Like, how much more can we learn about this student uh, through that, without just it being swimming? Because I hope that the student has spent countless hours, they've learned many valuable lessons that maybe they can take into other aspects of their life, like that grit, that determination, that focus, that drive. Where can that then show up in other parts of their life? So that's what I mean. So there's nothing wrong talking about swimming, but what has that taught the student, and how has it been developed in other areas of their life, or how have they benefited in other areas of life because of it? Or if you just stay in the pool area, what else have they done in the pool that's more than just being in the water?
Got it. So hopefully what people like got out of tonight, other than, individual little specific tips about, what to report or what not to report, is that, these are all pieces of a puzzle. The Common App is a piece, the essay is a piece, how you answer some of the questions within the Common App, your students' activities, and, you can just try and pretend you're the admissions officer. You don't have that much time to look at everything. So you want to make it as clean, as digestible, and make all these pieces fit as well as possible so that in a short period of time, somebody can read this. They're never going to meet your student in person. They're never going to see their face. They're never going to hear their voice, but they have a picture of who your student is by spending the short amount of time that they have reading all of this and putting it together. And so that's why we spend time going over this in such detail, because if you can make it as clean and understandable as possible, it just makes it easier for the person who doesn't have that much time, who needs to read it and evaluate and decide whether or not to kind of like move your student along in the process. So I don't know, Ellen, if you have any other words of advice for people to how to think about this, everything we talked about tonight.
I get fresh eyes on it, make sure it makes sense. Yeah, that's really important because I know when my daughters went through it, I had to have other people look at it because I couldn't see the stuff with fresh eyes. So that is something I would suggest. People are asking about the videos. They want to know if we're doing more. They want to know about old ones. So we did one, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Go to the YouTube, Road to College YouTube channel and look for one, the same Common App title, um, that go towards 3/4 of the way done. You'll see another Common App there. If you go to ones from, we've
Last
done
year.
them for years. I think this
Yeah.
is our fourth or fifth year, maybe our fourth year. So go look at other years this time in August, September for Common App mistakes, and you're going to see other Common App examples that I went through. And then in July, we did more. I went through, I did a fake student.
But you really went through kind of how to fill it out.
Yes, yes. So with a made-up student there, so because people were asking, are there more of these videos? So if you go and look in July, I think I did that talk twice, right, Debbie?
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, there are more Common App talks that we have done that we will benefit from watching. And we're not doing any more. I'm done because I need to dig into just working with students and put my nose to the grindstone editing.
Yeah, but
So.
I will put one plug in and you guys will get an email about this. We provide a lot of free information and I'm happy for people to kind of take, whatever they can take from these sessions and do as much as they can on their own. But sometimes people want like another set of eyes. Sometimes they want a little help. And we have a really great service that this is one of Ellen's favorite to do. And it's called a Common App review. And basically she does what she did tonight with your students' Common App. She kind of looks at it with clean eyes, questions everything, tries to clean it up, really kind of, points out things that can be improved. And it's kind of like the perfect way to let somebody else see what your student has put together and does it make sense and how are there ways to improve it because, you want to put your student's best foot forward. Or they want to put it best foot forward before they hit the submit. So you'll get information about that. It's called a Common App Review. Um,
And I want to say too, Debbie, one of my favorite parts of that is I work on it for like an hour and then I meet with the family. And then I'll drill down and say, why didn't you take social study history senior year? And what, you want to be a doctor, but well, what have you done to, outside school? Anyway, and often we uncover some really great material. And that just takes the application to another level sometimes. It's just can be really rewarding. So
yeah.
if as long as I have time to meet with the families, I do, and they can get a lot of questions answered. It's a lot of bang for the buck.
And the last piece of advice, this is early September. We kind of are getting along in the process, right? A lot of students are going to apply for early action, early decision. November 1st is a huge deadline. Whether you ask us for help or not, my advice is do not let your student wait until the day before to actually submit and like hit the submit button. There are too many instances when we've heard of just technical issues, and students can't submit, and then they miss the deadline, and they, are trying to ask the college, can I still submit it the next day? And you know what? Colleges are pretty strict with these deadlines. They feel like this is a life lesson that students, know these deadlines ahead of time. And unless there's a weather issue, like a real like
Yeah.
weather issue, that affected your community, They are not that they don't give that much leeway if in terms of if your student doesn't submit on time. And I'm talking about, even if the deadline's midnight and your students, try to submit, at 12:15, they're not going to take it. So just do not wait until the day before. Try and at least do submit a week before.
Yeah, the system can crash.
Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you,
And
Ellen.
the recording will be sent. A bunch of people asked that it's going to be sent
Recording is
out.
always, yes, we send it tomorrow in an email. Plus, we do eventually put it up on YouTube, but we make sure that you get it tomorrow. Thank
Good
you, Ellen.
luck,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.